Welcome to the program today, Kentucky's Voice.
This is Kentucky's Voice.
Of our special share-a-thon, our fall share-a-thon for this project. And but, with current events, we're going to shift the focus today and talk about what is really probably on everybody's mind. If you're a conservative, if you're someone that's on the right, that is, pays attention to any sort of conservative media or polemics. One of the great polemics of our time. Polemics means somebody that can debate and argue and bring forth their position in a political discussion. One of the greatest, up to yesterday, that in our country was Charlie Kirk. And Charlie Kirk, I would consider probably the leading voice in conservatism these days. There used to be Rush Limbaugh, was the leading voice in all things conservative in the U.S. And of course, with Rush's passing, we always, everyone in the conservative been, well, who's the next Rush Limbaugh? Who's the next person that can really coalesce all these different ideas that fall under the banner of conservatism and sort of present them well and package them well and represent them as a mainstream opinion. And it seems like Charlie Kirk did it better than anyone, and he did it with such grace and such goodwill and winsomeness when he would speak to people. And of course, many of you watching, I'm sure know who he is. You probably watched his videos on the line, his famous college campus tours where he'll debate young people and just how well he would do that. It was something that, if he had an opponent that was very agitated and that he would work with them. He would basically, counter their points, but still try to do it in a sense of, I'm reaching out to try to bring you over because we still think that, these are just ideas that we're discussing here, that we're not talking about existential issues of life and death. You're not an enemy. You're an American. I need, and I think he represented that spirit so well and better than anybody I've seen in the conservative movement, and also with a spiritual component to everything that he did. He's someone that had a very strong faith, and he was just so well spoken in defending that to people that where it was appropriate to discuss, and it was just, you just could celebrate everything he did. I was just, and so anyway, we're going to spend a lot of time today discussing what happened, because Charlie Kirk was assassinated yesterday. I'm not going to say he was killed. He was assassinated. This is an assassination if there ever was one. We have a sniper on a roof that took him out with a rifle, and just like Martin Luther King, just like John F. Kennedy, this is a political assassination, and it hits home. It hits really home to all of us who care about this country and our positions. And so we're going to talk about that today. So, and we have about a minute left. I forgot to introduce our guest. I'm going to have first Bob Scott on here and Dr. Lance Pearson, and so we have, we're going to save comments from these gentlemen until after the break, but we want you to know we are grieving with you, and we're going to work through this as a country and as a movement, and they're not going to intimidate us. There's going to be more Charlie Kirks going to rise from this, and we're going to do our part here at Kentucky's Voice. We're going to redouble our efforts to make sure we're not intimidated by this epidemic of left-wing violence. We're not going to be intimidated by it. And so we'll be right back on Kentucky's Voice, and we appreciate you watching today.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall Fundraiser is going on now. Learn how you can partner with us this week live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and of course we've been doing a share-a-thon all week, and so we're going to have a special 2-hour broadcast today, and we'll touch on our share-a-thon throughout the program, but we're going to focus more on the events that just occurred yesterday, and just to talk about that, and I think we have to talk about this. This is a real serious moment for the country. This is not to use a playoff words here, but this is a real turning point in a lot of ways, and of course Charlie Kirk represented a group called Turning Point USA. He created that institution, a wonderful institution, but yesterday was a turning point for this country. It sent a message about where we are right now and how we need to move forward, and well, actually, I'm unsure how to move forward. Honestly, I just know there needs to be consequences of this, but I'm unsure. So I'm going to open this up. I'm going to get Dr. Pearson involved. So Dr. Pearson, obviously, this is it's tragedy is just not a strong enough word in my mind. It's just beyond that. But I think to me, it has the level of an MLK, of that sort of, because Charlie Kirk, you know the history of Charlie Kirk. He's probably did more than any other person besides President Trump himself to get Trump elected, with Turning Point USA. So anyway, what are your thoughts on all this?
I think that's right. I think people on both sides of the aisle should view this as a punch in the gut, basically.
Yeah.
In this society, we have a democratic society, and if we can't have conversations with each other, if the way that people want to express themselves politically is by using a gun, we can't have a functional society. That's the bottom line.
That's right.
And so just speaking personally, and I know you feel the same way, Bob, I'm sure he feels the same way. Even though he was younger than all of us, we actually viewed Charlie as kind of a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
He followed a path. He kind of blazed a path of being able to reach the next generation for conservative ideas, which we are all trying to do.
Yeah.
Not just we want to reach everyone, but he in particular was able to speak to college students, Gen Z, in a way that was authentic. He communicated traditional and conservative values in a way that was appealing to people.
Yeah.
And I have no doubt that's why he was assassinated.
That's right.
We
right.
don't have the shooter. They haven't been found yet, but he was such an important voice. I just cannot believe that it's anything other than either a political or religious motivation, trying to silence someone that is such a powerful voice for traditional values. And so it's horrific. It's inexcusable, and it's totally unacceptable in a democratic, free, and fair society. And so it should be condemned on all sides. And don't pay attention to the occasional lunatic that you might get a clip of on TV or maybe on social media on the left. I don't use this to respond in kind. I think this station and all of our hosts are very dedicated Christians. We don't return evil with evil. We overcome evil with good. And that doesn't mean we submit to evil. We overcome evil with good. And so I just want to make that point very clear to our listeners. At no point is anyone on this station going to be advocating for violence or going out and finding a left-winger to even the score. That isn't an acceptable way of thinking, right. and no one here is going to be advocating for that.
Right, and I'll add to that, and I agree with that. And as a Christian, we want to return good. We also want to see justice, and we also need to see justice. And I tell you, if we don't see justice, and if we don't see some serious consequences to this, beyond just to the perpetrator, beyond just that person, I think there's other people that have a hand in this, in the sense that there's the whole left-wing machine
Absolutely.
has created an environment that has basically labeled people like him, like you, like me, like Bob, as somehow we are a danger. We are, toss around the word Nazis all the, we're all Nazis, we're all these right-wing dangerous people, and have created a sense of they are the other, and they're the oppressors, and us, the victim class, the transgenders, or the whatever victim class under the woke ideology, umbrella, all these victims are being oppressed by this group, and they're all Nazi. Well, what do you do with a Nazi? You fight a Nazi, you take them out, and so that language has been perpetrated by the left, and there needs to be consequences to that. Not vengeance, consequences. Because if there's not consequences, then the people on the right are not going to be satisfied, because we're going to see that, okay, no one cares. They're just going to kill our people, and no one cares. And then what you will have is you'll have people that are unhinged on the right that will start doing things like violence.
That's right.
And so we have to have a very consequential reckoning here of this moment and this act, beyond just the perpetrator. And I'm not saying lock up everybody on MSNBC, but I'm saying somebody on MSNBC was using words like Charlie Kirk's a fascist. Maybe they ought to be fired.
Right.
Maybe they ought to just. We're going to shun you out of polite society now. People that push that narrative, that push that agenda, you are now shunned. Especially unless you recant and repent of this stuff, you're out, and seriously out. Not just everybody on the right hates you, but the left celebrates you. If the left celebrates people that are still doing this, I don't think we can really function as a society at this point, because what happens is this: you get the fringe on the left that want to commit violence and start killing our people. And this is not the first time. I can go. Let me get Bob Scott in this. We got 4 minutes left. Bob, what are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, I obviously agree with everything that you both shared. Real famous podcaster, Patrick Bet David. He has a podcast called, I think, the PBD bot. I'm having a hard time talking this morning.
Podcast.
Go figure. I think like a lot of Americans, I didn't sleep well last night, guys. I don't know about you.
Me neither.
Right.
But it was an awful night's rest, and just so many things on my mind. But Patrick Bet David said Charlie Kirk is the only individual he has ever seen that was a unique combination of Billy Graham and Rush Limbaugh. And I would even go as far as saying he probably was certainly the number one or number two, a Christian apologist.
Yeah.
Yes. In today's world. Brilliant. Yes. He didn't go to college, but he got his knowledge through life and his own studies. And I would venture to say he has a PhD, or he had a PhD in the world and the way things are done. And we were blessed to have him. I mean, our country was blessed to have him, and we as American citizens we're blessed to have this strong Christian voice. And I do believe through these ashes, God is going to raise up a movement, what the devil's meant for evil will turn out to be worked for an incredible good. And you're going to see, through his falling, you're going to see many, many, many hundreds, if not thousands of more that are going to rise up to fill that void.
Yeah, well said. And I want to pause and say this. We would like to hear from you today. We've got a text line, 502-571-0970. Text us. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your heart right now. If you listen to this radio station, of course, Charlie Kirk is a host on our station. I mean, we run the Charlie Kirk Show. If you watch this television station, we run the Charlie Kirk Show on this television station. We are very invested in Charlie Kirk and in this community. This community is very familiar with Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk was just here in Louisville 2 months ago announcing Nate Morris's candidacy. So there's a lot of connection here with Charlie Kirk locally. We want to hear your thoughts. 502-571-0970. Text us your thoughts, and of course we were already doing this, so I have to mention this. I hate to even talk about this, but we are in the middle of a share-a-thon. We are fundraising for this project for Kentucky's Voice, but I don't want to anyway, cross these two, messages today. We're not here trying to fundraise about anything to do with yesterday. We were already doing this. And so if you'd like to support us, and this is a way to help keep the conservative message moving and going, especially in this local area. And that's about all I'll say on this segment. So, but anyway, we do want to hear your thoughts. So give us a call, or text us, 502-571-0970, and we'll read your text on the air. So 30 seconds left. Bob, any quick thoughts we want to say before we go?
Yeah, we are blessed to be able to do this, folks. We do need your help and support. This program today really isn't about so much the fundraising, but honoring the legacy of Charlie Kirk. But we are a station that's committed to bringing you the truth.
Well said. We'll be right back on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise. Speak up and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall Fundraiser is going on now. Learn how you can partner with us this week live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
What advice do you have for me as I move into adulthood in order to become a more informed and involved citizen?
Well, first of all, thank you for being here, and I have hope thanks to people like you. How old are you again?
13.
13. Here's a couple things I want to encourage you to do. Learn something new every single day, and focus on what it means to be a good person and a person of strong character. Aristotle said that courage is the ultimate virtue. Without it, there are no other virtues. If people aren't courageous, you don't have honesty, you don't have justice, you don't have beauty, you don't have wonder. And so at age 13, I want you to commit yourself to a life of courage. Courage is doing the right thing when you don't know how it's going to work out. Courage is committing yourself to the correct course of action, regardless of the cost associated to it.
Every human being, I believe, is made in the image of the divine, is sacred, is unique, and if we get away from this principle as we have, we not only have moral degradation, we not only have the collapsing society around us, but it's bad for that being itself. That being itself is unique, that being has rights, and who are we to say, just because we're older, that we get to murder it? Thank you.
Goodness, that is heartbreaking to see his children run up to him like that. But Dr. Lance's statement there is so poignant. I mean, courage. I mean, he was talking about it takes courage, no matter the cost. It takes courage. That's the virtue that. Well, if he didn't exemplify courage, no one ever has. So, it is courageous to go on a college campus and first of all, just debate young people who are hostile to him, and he did it in such a beautiful way, just a Christian way, a winsome way, a way that just in goodwill. It wasn't there to just let's go own the libs. Let's go, it wasn't that. It was all about let's try to win people over, and try to, right. And that's why Gen Z and this young generation is moving right. It's the most conservative generation we've ever had in this country, and I lay it at the feet of Charlie Kirk. I think he is responsible for that. So, Dr. Pierce, what are your thoughts on that?
I think that's right. As I was trying to deal with the situation last night, I looked up a couple of clips and a couple articles about Charlie, and just kind of in his own words, what did he think he was trying to do? And so I thought a very poignant one was, Charlie Kirk said that his mission was not to provoke the other side to try to generate internet attention, which is what a lot of people on the left think he was doing.
That's right.
He said he wanted to persuade young people to give traditional views a moment of their time. He said that he wanted to discuss faith and family, and that if he could, he would talk about religion all day long. And so this is a quote from Charlie that I thought was great. "My job every single day is actively trying to stop a revolution. This is where you have to point young people towards ultimate purposes, towards getting back to church, getting back to faith, getting married, having children. This is the type of conservatism that I represent, and I'm trying to paint a picture of virtue and lifting people up, not just staying angry." And I think in this, there's a natural instinct to be angry at a time like this. And so I just want to emphasize that Charlie didn't see that was actually what he was fighting against.
That's right.
That natural instinct to be angry, instead to lean into some of the things that are fundamental to our society, like family, religion, having children, getting back to your faith. And so I think all of the people on Kentucky's Voice, what we're trying to do is engage the culture. We're trying to provide an alternative to national media and kind of focus on Kentucky issues, which we have a little bit more ability to impact. And so by funding a conservative outlet like ours or supporting someone like Charlie, what you're doing is you're giving the other side, especially to kids who only get that other side.
Right.
They're on TikTok all the time, or they're listening to socialist rabble-rousers. And so if we're not here providing a cultural message that counters that and offers them an alternative, a way to lean into traditional values, our message is going to die. And so I really see this fundraising drive as somewhat a tribute to Charlie. All right.
Absolutely.
And I don't want to try to capitalize on his death. No one here is trying to do that. But we had this fundraising drive. And honestly, I think all of us see ourselves as performing a very similar function to what Charlie was doing.
That's right.
And so if you want to support our efforts, you can text that number, 502-571-0970. Text the word donate to that number, and a link will appear on your phone so that you can click on it.
The word give. The word
Yeah.
give.
Text the word give to that number.
That's right. Exactly right. And so, well said, Dr. Pierce. That's a lot of the critiques of the right over the past, 30, 40 years have been that we're just angry and negative, and we're just reacting against this progressive movement, and we didn't provide anything positive as an alternative, right? And so, and that could be accurate depending on who you were listening to, but
not
so
Charlie.
Right.
Not Charlie.
Not Charlie.
Right.
He was so good at just creating the vision, because a movement needs a vision. It needs a positive vision. It's more than just a negative. Hey, we got to stop this. We got to stop that. Well, that's fine. You want to stop that, but what do you want to do? What should we do? Right. Well, Charlie, faith, family, country, and sold that in a way that was. Because it's true. First of all, those messages are true.
Right.
It is true. If you celebrate those and embrace those, it is the essence of human flourishing. And he just basically communicated that in a way that was so powerful, so poignant, and that young people could get it. He used the medium of young people, used social media. The whole story of him finally getting TikTok to open up to Turning Point, because Turning Point banned him for a while, and then he came back to TikTok, and he said, this is after the Trump administration, some of those were saying, we're gonna ban TikTok, get rid of it because it's all Chinese. Well, so Kirk goes to TikTok, goes, it'd probably help you to let me back on TikTok, because you might not get kicked out of the country, get banned. And so they said, well, he's kind of right. Put him back on. Boom, he blows up. The number one videos on TikTok are him debating these young people for the first time, who are never exposed to conservative ideas because the media is so left wing, are finally exposed to these things. Well, this makes a lot of sense. That girl asked the same question I have, and Charlie answered it perfectly, and I am just like now reframing my worldview, and it was such a beautiful thing to watch, and
Absolutely.
And it was a positive thing to watch, and then just the courage and basically, like I said, he's basically a counter-revolutionary force, because we've lived through a revolution. This country has lived through a cultural revolution, almost like the Maoist revolution of the 60s in China. It's like we've lived through that in the past decade with the woke stuff. That was a Maoist woke revolution, and Charlie Kirk was the counter-revolutionary. And anyway, we got about a minute and a half left. Bob, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I also want to invite Richard Nelson onto the program today. Richard is executive director of the Commonwealth Policy Center, a good friend of mine, good friend of Kentucky's Voice. Welcome back to the program, Richard.
It's good to be with you, Bob. And I think all of our hearts here, as we discuss the death of Charlie Kirk, we're saddened and grieved, and I think we're trying to figure out as a people where to begin with this. And one of the things we do is we pray. We pray for healing. We pray for comfort for the family. We pray for God's peace to fall upon us. We're in a time of great division and anger and bitterness. And I know we don't have enough time to unpack all of that, but we have a problem with rejecting God in our culture. And one of the things that Charlie Kirk stood for is the sanctity of human life. I think that was, he reiterated that in a clip that was played earlier. And this is something we've forgotten. When you lose God as your moral reality, the giver of law, you lose the idea that human life is sacred. You lose the fear of God when it comes to the taking of human life. And I think this is part of our conversation.
We're gonna have to go to break real quick, Richard. Sorry to cut you off. We've got about 5 seconds left. We'll be right back. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice.
We'll pick this up at the other.
back to Kentucky's Voice Radio online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall fundraiser is going on now. Learn how you can partner with us this week live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
All right, welcome back to the program, Kentucky's Voice. We're in the midst of our fall share-a-thon. We were doing this all this week, and of course, you know, the events yesterday has certainly turned the tone of our efforts here to a new focus, which is grieving and memorializing and honoring Charlie Kirk and his life and his legacy. And so we're just here today with you as listeners and viewers to kind of work through this together. I think everybody who watches this or listens to this program are probably familiar with Charlie Kirk because it airs on both of these stations. You're either WBNA or WGTK. He airs on both, you know, and so you know who he is and what this meant, and it feels like everybody lost a friend. You know, it's like he was such a just a. I keep using the word winsome, but you know, someone that you just enjoyed listening to because of his spirit, his uplifting spirit, which really came from the Spirit of the Lord, I believe. You know, he was a genuine believer, Absolutely. Really had the Spirit of the Lord in his life, and you can just see it. So that draws people to you. You know, if you're really a sincere believer, the Holy Spirit just draws people to you for some reason. People like you, and they don't know why. You know, but it's because it's the Spirit of the Lord in you, and so. But anyway, so we're here today, grieving with you. And so we have some text. We're going to read through some of the text today and get everybody's thoughts on some of these. So the first one kind of, you know, it represents a feeling a lot of us have. And so the first, you know, I'll read it just straight through. They tried to kill Trump. They tried to kill the Pennsylvania governor. They shoot up our Christian schools. Now they've killed Charlie. How many more people have to die before we fight back? 100? 200? Because if we don't stop it now, that's where we're headed, right? And that's the sentiment. A lot of people have this sentiment of we need to fight back. But how and why and is the key thing. That could be channeled in a lot of different ways, in negative ways, positive ways. And so I'm going to go around the room here and get some thoughts. We'll start with Richard. Richard, about a minute or give us a couple minutes. I want to get everybody's thoughts on that. What should we do now, especially with this sort of text? So, this sort of message.
I hear the frustration, Tom, but I recall Jesus's words, who said that he who lives by the sword will die by the sword. This is when Peter took up the sword to release the captors of Jesus, and he said, "Look, we're not going to take up arms. This is my Father's will." And I think the same. We do not fight violence with violence. We do not, when somebody curses, Jesus says you bless when they curse. You do not return reviling for reviling. We know that we're in a spiritual battle, Tom, but our weapons are different. And by the way, standing on the sidelines is not an option. We do need to fight, but the weapons we use are different. We stand and we speak. We use those platforms that Charlie Kirk had used, and we carry on the torch of that message. But we do not take up violence. We do not resort to violence and take up arms. The consequences of that are unimaginable. Look, we still have a justice system. The FBI was carried out there right away. They're trying to find this guy. Justice will prevail. We still have strong enough institutions in this country where justice will prevail. In the meantime, my encouragement to the conservative community is to use your energy and to move it in a positive direction. Find other people who will speak the truth and support them. Find candidates who will run for office that believed in the same things that Charlie Kirk believed in: the sanctity of life, marriage between a man and a woman, conservative government. Get behind these efforts. Run for office yourself. Taking up arms, however, is not an option. And this is something we need to shun those who are resorting to violence or would call on others to take up arms.
That's right. I totally agree with that. And in this context, in this particular scenario, that's exactly right. There's no need for the right to respond in kind because we have institutions, we have a Justice Department, we actually have, the president who actually, with very favorable federal officials that can deal with this. And so yeah, it's not appropriate. Now, to say that all violence is never necessary, I mean, this is more of an academic point, not about this point, but you wouldn't have the United States of America if violence wasn't, sometimes necessary. But of course, we had an unjust government at the time, the King of England, so we rebelled, and we rebelled violently. And so that's why we have the Second Amendment. Sometimes that's necessary. That's kind of a last resort. It's kind of break glass in case of fire type thing. We're nowhere near that yet. We have plenty of institutions and plenty of a good. But I think all of us agree, though, this is a moment where the consequences. There needs to be some consequences of this beyond just the perpetrator that did this. Beyond that, there needs to be a real reckoning with the left-wing movement that has encouraged the atmosphere for this, because it's continuing. This isn't just a one-off. This is a trend, and it seems to be accelerating. And so, a reckoning needs to occur. So very serious consequences need to occur. And if we don't, sentiments like this text that we just got, that's going to be unresolved in people's hearts. It's like, well, no one cares. There's no justice being had here. And so what do we do? And then they break out. Then they break the glass, and we don't want that. So, Dr. Pierce, what do you think about that?
I think those are all great points. Thank you, Richard. I agree 100% with both of those sentiments. I think we do need to draw a distinction between self-defense and violent retribution or retaliation.
Right.
There's no room for violent retaliation. And really, let's be honest, it's the left that needs to police the left.
That's right.
I mean, that's the honest truth. I do believe that MSNBC broke contact. They broke a contract with one of their consultants because they basically said some insensitive things towards Charlie Kirk.
He was blaming Charlie Kirk's rhetoric for his own
exactly.
demise. Yeah.
And hopefully that continues. I mean, that's what we need, is the left calling out people that are escalating the rhetoric when they should be de-escalating this situation right now. And just as speaking as Christians, let's remember that our Lord and Savior was executed because of political and religious disagreements with the authorities of his time. Of the 13 apostles, both the 12 apostles and the replacement apostle, 11 of those were murdered. Okay, so we come from a long religious tradition of being oppressed. Remember, in the first 2 centuries after Jesus Christ, Christians were thrown into arenas to basically have to fight with lions for the entertainment of the public. So this isn't a new experience of being subjugated and violence being perpetrated against us. And what happened during those first centuries? It was an explosion in the religious message. And I'm hoping that one of the good things that comes out of this horrific situation is there is a rise in people that are willing to stand up and speak and try to convince people that the path that we are going on now leads to nowhere good.
Yeah.
If we cannot condemn political violence, if we don't turn back to traditional thinking, this is only going to escalate, and it winds up a place that no one wants to go. So those are my thoughts. I just hope that we as a station are able to carry on Charlie's legacy by spreading that message and engaging in this spiritual culture war, not a physical war. And if you want to help that cause, that's what this share-a-thon is about. Again, please text GIVE or donate to 502-7571-0970. Your giving goes to basically carrying on that legacy of engaging in nonviolent conversation with the other side and trying to convince people of the intelligence and the prescience of our side.
Well, so well said, Dr. Pierce. Thank you for that, and Richard as well. And so, Bob, you mentioned this to me yesterday. Charlie Kirk, if there ever was a martyr for the Christian faith, Charlie Kirk, I think, is a martyr. And so, and from martyrs sometimes comes the blood of martyrs is the food of revival or something.
It brings about revival. And Tom, I absolutely 100%. I know, because you know how I know? The Word of God says so. That he works all things together for the good to those who love him and called according to his purpose. And I believe that through these ashes that we experienced yesterday, so tragic, so awful, so unexpected, that you're going to see a revival like we've never seen that's going to come forward, and people are going to rise up. In fact, one person texted in and said, hoping we all have young relatives and friends who knew who Charlie was and understood his message. That's an encouraging word in itself. And as you said earlier, Tom, Generation Z is the group that really helped get Trump elected. How did that happen? Well, Charlie Kirk was going out and about and spreading the Christian conservative message to all that he came into contact with. So President Trump owes him, and he's acknowledged it, a great deal of admiration for him being put into that position. And yeah, he was only 31 years old. And think about it. But he accomplished more in his 31 years than probably all of us will ever accomplish in our entire lifetimes.
Right.
Well, remember, Jesus was only 33 when he was executed.
And I thought the same thing, Dr. Pearson, the exact same thing. And go ahead, Richard. I know you had something you want to say.
Are you all seeing any of the real-time news or videos that are being posted on social media? You aware of some of this? I'm looking at
not in the past couple hours.
A video interviews of University of Texas at Austin students asked about Charlie Kirk being killed yesterday. Here's a couple other answers. One of the students there at UT Austin said that they're happy. Another says that it's good. One says that someone had to do it. And another one said that they would not have saved him or helped him.
Yeah.
There's another video of somebody, and I'm not sure if this is UT Austin, but somebody with a megaphone saying, congratulating the killer of Charlie Kirk.
Yeah, that's right.
In Idaho at the state capitol, there was a guy that went through the capitol. There's a large gathering there on a motorcycle or a moped, saying vulgarities about Charlie Kirk.
Well, Richard, we're about to go to a break, but it's exactly right. Let's talk about that in the next segment. The left is unrepentant. We'll be right back.
We'll talk more.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news and real answers, but we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with me.
especially one of the most divisive, especially.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
The We the People Fall fundraiser is going on now. Learn how you can partner with us this week live from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. daily. Together, we will stand for faith, family, freedom, and the Kentucky way. Do not miss it.
But following up on what was just said, he's been.
All right, we're going to go to this clip of from MSNBC.
But following up on what was just said, he's been one of the most divisive, especially divisive younger figures in this, who is constantly sort of pushing this sort of hate speech or sort of aimed at certain groups. And I always go back to hateful thoughts lead to hateful words, which then lead to hateful actions. But following up on what was just said,
there we go.
he's been one of the most.
That was Matthew Dowd, MSNBC contributor, who has been fired, thankfully. Those comments basically, and you mentioned this earlier, Dr. Pierce, that he was basically blaming Charlie Kirk for his own demise. It's like, well, you say these things, this is what you get. You know, that's basically what he said. And we were talking to Richard in this last segment about a lot of the young people that are commenting around the country and on college campuses, that many are happy about this and they're supportive of this. And if you've done any sort of Twitter viewing or been on X or any sort of social media the past day, I'm sure you've seen a few people celebrating and as well. And there is this segment of the far left that is so indoctrinated, so steeped in their ideology, and that I think they're beyond the pale. And so the question is, what do we do? What do we do with that group in society? Can we live with that group in society? Because I just wonder, Richard, what are your thoughts on that?
You know, Tom, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, in that when you see violent rhetoric, hateful rhetoric that is calling for violence on somebody else, you need to call it out. If it's a personal conversation, if you've got a platform, if you're a journalist like this other fella at MSNBC who was singling out Charlie Kirk, let's be clear about this, because Charlie Kirk had traditional views on family, marriage, gender, smaller government. He was singled out as being the one who was hatred simply because of his beliefs. Charlie's actions weren't hateful. He didn't condemn other people. He was one of the most pro-life people in the country. What's happened on college campuses, Tom, is that you have forced conformity. Charlie Kirk's views on most college campuses are not allowed. In fact, there are 1,000 students that
we call the American
that signed a petition saying we don't want Charlie here. How sad is that? At places of higher learning where you should welcome different viewpoints and ideas. And the truth is that Charlie Kirk has been banned from scores of college campuses where he had to fight for his First Amendment freedoms to come, and those student groups had to fight for his right to come and speak on those campuses. Charlie Kirk was not the one fomenting hatred and anger. He had deep biblical convictions when it came to reality. God's role in our government, God's role as far as defining us male and female, God's definition of marriage. And somehow, as Charlie tried to mainstream these things, the political left is pushing back and saying he's the one that's intolerant. We'll simply go to the social media posts, the TikTok posts, where you will see vile and vulgar and awful things said about Charlie and about those on the political right. And here's where we need to be clear. We don't respond in kind. We don't call for the elimination of our political opponents. We pray for them. We let justice take its course. We have institutions here where justice will be meted out, but we do not take up arms. But I think that, Tom, that this is going to galvanize, it appears to me, This is galvanizing the political right and those who see that there's no place for violence. There's no place for targeted assassinations of people that you differ from politically. And it's galvanizing conservatives, and they're saying, "Hey, this is not acceptable. We're going to find candidates and work for them, and we're going to stand on principles and work for. Essentially, we need to work for not just leaders and for better laws, but we need to work for civility and reconciliation in this country too. And this is where pastors come in. One more thought: pastors need to speak boldly and clearly about this issue as well, because we see it in different churches where we have people who are very angry and would like to encourage others to take out their anger and to translate that into violence. Pastors need to call that kind of thing out as well.
Yeah, well said, well said. And totally agree. We do need to speak out, though, again, and like you said, to speak out against folks that are celebrating or somehow there needs to be some sort of response to someone that is celebrating the death or just being flippant about this, or there needs to be a reaction that is healthy in a civilization, in a society that says that is wrong. We're going to shun you. There's a consequence for you thinking that way. You are now a threat to our society because you're advocating violence. When you go to violence, this whole system falls apart. It's either bullets or ballots. You're advocating bullets, and so and like you said, Richard, and everybody's made this point. Of all people to target, it's Charlie Kirk who has done the most to reach out to the other side. Every college campus event was him trying to reach his hand out to an opponent that had a different viewpoint and say, listen, we can work together. We can talk through this. Here's my worldview. Let me hear yours. Okay, let's have a fair exchange. And sometimes they would just say, okay, well, we disagree to disagree. And here's a hat. Yeah. He would give them his hat. Because he had all these. Of course, mine says "Make America Pray," which is I think appropriate for today. His is "Make America Great." He would give these out to, and I would see it. A lot of liberal students would run up and argue with him, and then at the end they would say, "Hey, can I have a hat?" so it's just a beautiful way of engaging. And of all people, I mean, it'd be different if it was somebody, a little bit more of a bomb thrower like Alex Jones or Michael Savage or somebody that is a little bit more of the kind of this negative energy of conservatism. This is the most positive energy in conservatism today. And so anyway, Bob.
Go ahead.
Richard,
I got to say this to Richard's point that he made a second ago: the importance of leaders, Christian leaders, pastors, and not just pastors, but anybody like us. Get on the forefront and start speaking truth. And in fact, I saw a post. I'm not going to mention the pastor's name in Lexington, one of the largest churches in Lexington. And he began his post by saying, I normally don't comment on political issues, but, and it was so good to see him say this, but this is one now that I feel I must speak out against. And of course, he started talking about the tragic assassination of Charlie Kirk. So these are things that we need to see more and more and more. And I think we're going to. I really do. In fact, one person texted in referring to a previous text about violence. We still don't see people being held accountable like we as Christians feel accountable for our actions daily, as simply not saying hi to a stranger. For example, our sides have gone so far apart on the basic love of life. What did the person get for cold-blooded murder of a CEO of the United Healthcare CEO? Of course, that's who they were talking about.
Luigi. Yeah, he's a hero.
He's a hero of the left. That has gone cold, know, and a lot of it is because of the social media stuff that's out there and the games, the violent games that kids play every single day. Listen, there's consequences to non-action. And this is a time for a time such as this, going to the time of Esther and where she was basically called out by Mordecai and said, you can remain quiet if you want to, but you're going to end up in that noose also. No, he said, you must speak out for a time such as this. And that's exactly what Esther did. And she helped save her entire nation because of that. And you know what? We need more Esthers in this country to rise up, start speaking out and taking a stand for holy righteousness and calling things that are evil, evil, and stand against it.
Yeah, Bob, good point. If I could jump in and
go
say
ahead,
some of the evil that we're seeing, and I was just, while we're on the program here in the last couple minutes, just looking at some of the videos, and I saw a person, young girl, looked like a college-age girl, dancing, rejoicing over his death. That is the epitome of evil. When you're rejoicing in an assassination of an innocent human being, that is evil. And Tom, there are consequences. There's a group that's out there. I believe it's called Accuracy in Media. And they're making notes of those who are rejoicing over his death, or they're promoting more violent political rhetoric, and they're taking notes. And I recall, by the way, an issue that happened in Kentucky a few years ago, just came to light the other month, where I believe it was a school board member in northern Kentucky had violent comments that they posted on social media. It was either Facebook or Twitter. And somebody brought this to the public's attention. They were vile, ugly, hateful, leading to, encouraging violence. Here's where consequences come in. That person was forced to leave his job.
That's right.
He might be facing other criminal actions, consequences as well. There are still consequences, and there are groups out there right now who are taking note on what people are saying. So I think that's good news, that there are consequences, and there are people that are vigilant, and they're alerting us to it.
That's exactly right. A lot of companies have these social media policies now because of things like that. And so, matter of fact, I saw one last night. There's somebody that works at the University of Kentucky in their maintenance department or something. And I think Andrew Cooper Ryder was highlighting who this guy was, and that, hey, I mean, he was basically celebrating, and and so does the University of Kentucky want somebody like that celebrates the death of a person? So yes, those consequences should play out, and that's what a healthy society should do. And because really, Richard and Bob and Lance, there's only two ways this goes. When you have two cultures that start bifurcating in a society, culture, it comes from the word cult, which means religion, basically. So when you have two different religious worldviews that deal with existential issues and they can't agree, it only goes one way or the other. It's civil war or separation. And so the answer is Christ. And Charlie Kirk was bringing Christ to the conversation, and he was winning, and that's why the leftists reacted. And so he is the solution. That's the answer to this. More Charlie Kirk. And so we'll be right back after this segment.
This is Kentucky's Voice Radio, covering the latest state and local issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
Starting with the video.
The spiritual battle is coming to the West, and the enemies are wokeism or Marxism combining with Islamism to go after what we call the American way of life. And the American way of life is very simple. I want to be able to get married, buy a home, have kids, allow them to ride their bike till the sun goes down, send them to a good school, have a low-crime neighborhood, not to have my kid be taught the lesbian, gay, transgender garbage in their school, while also not having them have to hear the Muslim call to prayer 5 times a day. That's important. We want the American way of life, which is, by the way, Christendom. Christians, our sacrifice, our toil, our vision, the outgrowth of the scriptures gave us Western civilization. And this is where I think is a great rallying cry. Doesn't matter if you're Hispanic, doesn't matter if you're Asian, doesn't matter if you're black or white. Everybody, if you are Christian and Jesus Christ is your Lord and Savior, these two threats are combining forces to come after us, and it's time that the church stands and rises up against it.
Yep. God bless that man. Goodness gracious, God bless him. I mean, that's exactly right. And it's Christ or chaos, guys. And this country was built on a Judeo-Christian foundation.
Absolutely.
And we get away from that, it falls apart. And he understood that better than anybody, and he knew this is the answer to this cultural revolution we were going through is to bring back what worked. Our traditions, which is Judeo-Christianity. So, Dr. Lance, what are your thoughts? Oh, by the way, I'm Tom Fallbush. You're listening to Kentucky's Voice, Hour 2. We're in the midst of our share-a-thon this week, and of course, Charlie Kirk's assassination yesterday changes the tone of what we're doing today. We're just going to focus in on that, but also we are, we still are asking for your support, but we want to minimize that appeal today because of what's going on. We want to help everybody grieve through this and work through this together. And so please text us. So we want to hear your thoughts, 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. That's also the line that you can give to the Kentucky's Voice Project. And Kentucky's Voice, we've got connections with Turning Point. We've actually hired some Turning Point kids to help work with us as interns. We promoted Turning Point. We've had commercials on our station that we ran for free for Turning Point for years, recruiting young people to participate with Turning Point. We've done a lot with Turning Point, and we air both of his programs on both radio and television on the station. And let me just say this: a lot of the news content doesn't cover its cost, because of on advertising alone. Kentucky's Voice supplements that, and so you're helping that message. And I'll just be real blunt about it. You're helping Charlie Kirk's message, and you have been helping Charlie Kirk's message get out in Louisville and the surrounding areas by supporting us. And so, and I don't want to be out of bad taste here and try to pitch off of the tragedy yesterday. I'm not doing that at all. Just being blunt, it's just the truth. And so, regardless, we're here to grieve and talk about this. So, yep. Dr. Pierce, what are your thoughts on that video?
So we talked a little bit, and even before the video was perfect. I mean, Charlie Kirk is incredible communicator, and he really hit it in that point. In the last segment, we talked a lot about the young people that were very callous about the situation, and a lot of why that happens is because they're only getting one-sided propaganda.
Yeah.
They only hear on TikTok, or they only hear on MSNBC or CNN. They only hear left-wing rhetoric. And when you don't interact with the other side, which is what Charlie Kirk was trying to break down. He was trying to break down that bubble. If you don't hear from the other side, you start to think of them as less than human.
That's right.
They're other, and therefore we don't have to care about them. And so I want to recommend to our listeners to find the video from last night, which was hosted by Andrew Cooper-Ryder, who is incredible at this, with a lot of our guest hosts talking about this situation. It was very helpful in my grieving process. And so Andrew Cooper-Ryder is starting to host on Fridays at 11 p.m. a new show. Please give in order to promote more content like that.
Exactly right. We'll be right back. Starting with the video.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Tell me again about, Posobiec and Bannon and the rhetoric. Oh, the rhetoric. You're so upset. Oh, because I used the word unhumans. Yeah, what word would you ascribe to an act like this? It's unhuman, okay? That's what we're living through. You think I want to do this with my time? You think I got kids? You think I want to be here? This is what you have done to our country.
Exactly.
And what comes next is on you too.
And we're not going to back off an inch. Anybody think if you're going to back off, then this is not for you. Charlie Kirk gave his life for our country. He's on the battlefield of political combat, okay? And they cut him down with an assassin's bullet. Let's be blunt about this. They cut him down with an assassin's bullet.
There we go. Great Steve Bannon and Josh Posobiec, who also airs on this station and part of the same network, Real America's Voice. You know, Charlie Kirk's program ran on Real America's Voice, and of course so does Bannon's show, and we're an affiliate of theirs. So Dr. Pierce, you were making some great points, but I want to go to Richard. I think we only have Richard for one more segment. So Richard, do you have any thoughts on what Dr. Lance said, and maybe this video as well, that last segment?
Tom, it was brought up at one point about moving our energy and our grief and our frustration in a positive direction. And some of you have heard my story where years ago when I was involved with the pro-family movement, I had such a sense of frustration. There was so much going wrong with this country. Many of the people involved with the pro-family movement were angry, and I was about ready to leave it. And it's because if you just wake up every day looking at the headlines and looking at what's wrong, that will begin to weigh heavy on your soul. And I had some influences in my life that taught me that, yes, we cannot neglect or ignore the evil and the bad policies and the terrible leaders, but we must also lead. We must cast a vision for the true, the good, and the beautiful. And when I began to make that shift in my mind, Tom, I began to lead in a different way. I began to speak to the issues in a different way. I began to, in fact, started a different organization, the Commonwealth Policy Center. And here's one of the positive things that we're doing. And I hate to take a moment to say this, but I will, because I know there are a lot of people out there frustrated and they want to turn their energy in a positive direction. We're bringing a candidate training to Louisville a week from this Saturday on September the 20th. We're going to train candidates how to run for school board and city council and local offices. And you can find out more on our website at commonwealthpolicycenter.org. Tom, one of our goals was for Kentucky to become a pro-life state. And the way to change your policies to become a pro-life state where the unborn are protected is you need to change your leaders. And when we began in 2012, we began recruiting and training conservative pro-life leaders to serve in our legislature. And when that majority was in place, they eventually passed the trigger bill, which as soon as the Roe v. Wade was overturned, the trigger bill went into effect and Kentucky became one of over a dozen states that banned abortion. This is what you do with your anger and your frustration and your disappointments. You roll up your sleeves and you stand in the gap and you get involved, whether it's running for office or helping on a campaign or writing a letter to the editor, whatever your gift or talent is, writing a check to conservative, pro-life, pro-family candidates. These are some of the things you can do. For Christians, we can pray. We should pray for Charlie's grieving family. We should pray for our nation and pray that God would have mercy on us. There are many, many things that we can do as individuals. We're not all called to run for office. We're not all called to be pastors, but we're all called to do something. God has gifted us with something to do to help move this country in a better direction.
Yeah, so well said, Richard. And yeah, there's so many great organizations in the state, like Commonwealth Policy Center and others, other think tanks, and so yeah, there's a lot you can do. And your story about a few years ago being discouraged, and actually the conservative movement had a lot of reasons to be conservative or be discouraged over the past decade or so. We were kind of in the wilderness years, with the Obama administration, the Biden administration, and just even in the Bush era, you still had a bit of a globalist, sort of mentality, and so. But one thing to be positive about right now is where we are at politically. The reason why Charlie Kirk, I hate to even say this word anymore, but the reason why Charlie Kirk was assassinated, all right, is I use a World War II terminology. When you're over the target, that's when you see flak, right? If you're a bomber, you're flying over, you're about to bomb a city, and they're protecting the target, and so we're over target. The movement is over target. We are in a renaissance as far as the conservative movement. We have some political power now. The culture's swinging our direction, and so now is the time. If you've ever been, concerned about these issues, to lean into it, because now's the time. All we got to do is just really lean into this and push. We're at the tipping point to win back the culture politically. We could have a conservative, traditional America that is reestablished in this country for next 2 or 3 generations.
That's right.
At this point, if we do this right. And Charlie Kirk was a key, part of that, because of a turning point and what he did with the young generation. Gen Alpha and Gen Z, most conservative generations we've had forever, because of Charlie Kirk and TikTok.
That's right.
All right, let's just get down to it. It's because of good and an organization like Turning Point. And so,
if I could piggyback a little bit on what Richard said.
Yeah.
Number one, I want to echo what Richard said about the possibility of running for office or getting involved in a political campaign. His organization is actually this Saturday hosting a candidate training in Frankfurt. So that might be stretching our radio limit, but if you are watching on Facebook Live or on YouTube, you're watching this rebroadcast, or tonight on Spectrum Channel 21, watching this broadcast, you basically go to CommonwealthPolicyCenter.org and sign up for that candidate training. I think it's only $50. That includes a meal. Fantastic. I've been to them, and I will be there if you want to meet me. If that's, I don't know how many people that would motivate, but
you're a cool guy, Dr. Lance.
Exactly.
People want to meet
I try to be.
I'm telling you.
But thank you for that nice plug. I appreciate that. That's
absolutely. And one thing I want to say, one thing that I think that he did miss, one way that you can contribute is by digging into your pockets and giving to local media, like local conservative media, like Kentucky's Voice. And so I know this is a sentiment that I have as one of our younger hosts, is I don't know how to connect with those young people the way that Charlie Kirk did. And I know a lot of people have kids or they have grandkids that they want to reach with a conservative message. They don't know how to communicate with them. And so I just want to emphasize some of the work that Kentucky's Voice is trying to do in order to do that job that I don't really know how to do that well, and you probably don't know how to do. And so Kentucky's Voice on Channel 21, WBNA on Spectrum TV, has started a late-night Kentucky political news show at 8 p.m. You can catch that every day, nightly, I think during the work. That might just be during the work week. And then on Fridays at 11 p.m., Andrew Cooperrider is holding a show called Late Night on the Right. So those are just 2 examples of programming in order to wage that spiritual culture war that we need to be picking up the baton from Charlie. And so if you want to support those efforts, you can set up monthly giving. Just text GIVE or text DONATE, whichever one of those you want, to 502-571-0970. That's 502-571-0970.
Well said. Well said. Thank you. And we have some more texts that have come in, and this one's a little bit, they're not really happy with our rhetoric here. It basically said your rhetoric will only lead to more deaths, basically, and so they're not supportive of our call to basically, listen. We think there needs to be consequences. And real serious consequences, and there needs to be a reckoning on the left. And but we cannot resort to violence at this, in this scenario. And this is not the moment to break out the guns, guys. It's just not. This is. Listen, I'm Second Amendment. And I'm all about. I grew up on the movie Red Dawn. Right. I'm ready for the communist insurgency. I'm ready to go. I love that stuff. This ain't it. This ain't it. This is because we are on the ascendant. We have the political power now. We've got the Justice Department. We can deal with this in the right way and establish a successful civilization here for the next generation or two. And so let's just lean into that. But there needs to be some serious consequences beyond just this shooter. The left needs to come to heel.
Itself.
They need to come to heel on this stuff, because any more of these deaths, I can't, listen, there's some people, this fella here, He's calling us a coward, So it's basically saying we're not ready to take up arms and do something. This voice is bubbling if we don't have some serious consequences in this situation. So, and the left, like you said, Dr. Pierce, the left has to police itself, and we need to see them stand up. And if they're not, that's a problem. And so, we got 30 seconds left in this segment. So call us, text us, 502-571-0970. 571-0970. You can also text the word GIVE, and you can help support Kentucky's Voice and what we're doing here. And also, we want to hear your thoughts. More texts like that. You think we're wrong? Think we're off base? Tell us. We want to hear it. We will read your text. So we'll be right back here in Kentucky's Voice with Dr. Lance and Bob.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads. Voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
And there, Dana, we have images of the suspect. That after they gave us a number of details that we were not privy to prior. So they say a number of individuals questioned, they've been released, they asked for privacy for them. At 11:52 a.m. Utah time, they tracked the suspect to that building. They later, after the shooting, tracked him jumping off the building, fleeing into a neighborhood. And they're asking neighbors in that area if they have doorbell cameras to turn over anything that may produce an image. What they didn't say is whether or not he ran there on foot or drove a car. But later they said, we do have good video of this individual. We are confident in our abilities. And with regard to that, they say they have footwear prints. So perhaps he was on foot, and also palm prints. And they asked for any video and images tipped to the website there. This is a bolt-action rifle. It is manually operated. It is extremely accurate. And according to a lot of gun experts, it has fewer moving parts, which would give the killer an opportunity to take a more accurate shot. And based on the graphic images that the world saw yesterday afternoon, that shot was a kill shot. It took one, and Charlie Kirk barely had a chance of survival.
Yeah, well, there we go. Always enjoy when people that don't know guns talk about guns. I mean, at the end of the day, it was any kind of rifle would have done that shot, unfortunately. But, you know, it's tragic. And actually, I've got a clip of video I'm going to try to pull up here of the actual shooter running across the roof, and I found this last night, and I want to play it because it was pretty interesting. Yeah, and just since he did bring up the, you know, the apparently was a bolt action rifle. Somebody said it had a Mauser action, which is probably a hunting rifle. Most Remington 700s have the Mauser action. So 30-06 is what they said. 30-06. I don't know if this is accurate or not. That's a very powerful round. That's the same round they used in World War II M1 Garands, right? So very potent. And I don't know if this is confirmed or not, but I heard someone say that the shooter had etched in on the cartridge casings some anti-fascist things, also some pro-trans ideologies. Don't know if that's verified or not, but that's some of the rumors. Let me show you this clip of what's going on here.
You think he'd already be in place? You would think that. So there's somebody on the roof.
It looks like the shooter staging himself for a shot. You can see the rifle there in the middle, kind of pointing out. But
from over there.
So somebody saw this. Somebody saw him staging. I'll play this one more time for you. So you see a shooter kind of running across the roof, and then someone staged up right in the corner of a roof.
So there's somebody on the roof right there?
They say the shot was about 200 yards, and
ran from.
So, you know, not a difficult shot. I mean, if you're into shooting at all, 200 yards with a scoped rifle isn't that difficult. But he did do it in one shot, and it was, you know, it was tragic.
It wouldn't shock me if he had a hunting background.
Exactly, right. Or he definitely went to the range. He definitely went to the range. But and I encourage you, you know, I saw the video, the live video, not the live, I guess some unedited video, and it is just. It is so disturbing, and I just don't encourage anybody to watch it because it's one of those images that kind of burn in your mind for the rest of your life, and you just, you know, it gave me a sleepless night. I've been grieving the whole day about the whole scenario, and just the visual of it is even that more. Yeah. It was just terrible. So, but anyway, Dr. Lance, what are your thoughts?
Well, I actually wanted to draw a parallel to the other story that kind of dominated news earlier this week, and that was the murder on a transit system. I don't know if it was a bus or a light rail of this Ukrainian immigrant, Irina Zarutska. I don't know if people saw the clip, and I don't even know if I want to recommend people see the clip because it's horrific. Just an innocent, totally unaware young woman, probably in her 20s, just sitting quietly looking at her phone on a transit system, and someone, a apparently multiple offender, 14 previous convictions, multiple offender person that probably had some mental health issues, comes up behind her, and the parallel that I saw with Charlie Kirk, also horrific video, but just the blood spewing out of his neck. It was the exact same mechanism of death. Like once that jugular vein gets cut, whether it be through a bullet or through a pocket knife in her case, you've basically got seconds that you have to have emergency medical treatment. Even if you're on an emergency room table when this happens to you, there's a good chance of death. And so the parallel that I saw there was not only senseless violence, but it's the two sides. In the Charlie Kirk situation, I think everyone assumes this was a targeted political or religious operation. They wanted to take out someone with a powerful voice, and they did that intentionally. Horrific. Also horrific was what I regard as totally senseless. killing of this young innocent woman.
Right.
And so the message that really hit home with me is we live in a dark, fallen world. That's been the case since Adam. Remember, the second generation of man, after Adam, we had brother killing brother, again, senselessly. So this is part of human nature. It's a part of human nature that we have to run from. And how do we counter darkness? We counter darkness by shining a light.
That's right.
And so I want us as conservatives, as communicators and influencers like Tom and I and Bob are trying to be, we need to be that light to not only shine a light on these situations, to make people aware of the world that we're living in and the need for counteracting it, but also to shine the light both of the gospel and of our politics. We want to basically expose people to another way of directing our society towards traditional values, family, faith, freedom, fairness, all of these core fundamental truths. We need to be offering that to the world. And I just want to urge our listeners, support this project as we try to get young people that can be on our station to reach these young people and give them that alternative. There isn't only violence and negativity and socialism and death. All right, there is another option for these people, but they have to be exposed to it. We have to use our voice. We have to be able to get into their bubbles, their information bubbles, so that they can see an alternative and see it as a viable choice for them and their future.
Yeah, so well said. So well said. And you know, that particular story is, you know, the correlation that I would also bring to that, you know, the Ukrainian refugee that got stabbed, you know, if you watch the video, the gentleman who did the murder is walking up and down the train aisle, and he's saying, "I got that white girl.
Yeah.
I got that white girl." And so now, you know, obviously the man's unhinged in his mental illness, and so you can't disparage, you know, African Americans or whatever. But Charlie has made a point about you know, just this, and we've all in the conservative movement made this point, that there's just been a narrative over the past decade that, you know, from the BLM movement, that the Breonna Taylor movement, that there is this oppressed dynamic. And so that they're out to get minority, you know, the mainstream, the larger ethnic group, the white ethnic group is out to get the black ethnic group, and it works itself out in policing and the justice system, and so that messaging has hit home with certain folks in the community. And now how people react to that, they're obviously not going to be murderous, but those that are unhinged, right? Because look what happened to Charlie Kirk. You probably had some unhinged transgender person or unhinged Antifa person. And so when ideology that like that type of that woke Marxist ideology is pushed into people's heads, it's going to activate the unhinged to act on these things. And so I think it was a racial hate crime that this guy, even though he's unstable, I got that white girl. Well, you know, if it was with the BLM movement, if the BLM movement didn't exist, would he still have said that? You know,
and we want to counter that racial hatred.
Exactly right. Yeah, we need to come together. And this is we all bleed red.
That's right.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
Welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We are dealing with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and we are grieving today. We're discussing it. If you're just joining us, we've been on for a bit here discussing that and sharing our heart and our thoughts about this and what we should do as a movement. What we're all feeling right now. There's a mix of emotions. There's the red-blooded American sense of justice is rolling through our minds and our hearts right now. At the same time, we know that we have to be wise about how you deal with that, and at the end of the day, there needs to be consequences. I think we all agree with that. Beyond just that, and we all agree with that. Beyond just the shooter, there's a movement here. There's a trend line of violence that seems to be speeding up, and it's coming from the left. I don't see a lot of this. I don't see much right-wing violence with that, and we all agree. Move trend line speed left. It's right. A lot of left-wing violence. I see all these trans shooters. I see these people trying to kill Trump. All these even back in the first Trump administration, you had people shooting up the Congress. There's
Steve
just
Scalise. Steve Scalise.
Steve Scalise. Yeah, right. There's just a moment here of left-wing violence, and it makes sense. They're very nihilistic. They don't really believe in the value of human life anyway, and they see that, and their whole rhetoric is, we are the others. We're we're not human. We're just these Nazis. And what do you do with a Nazi? You punch a Nazi. You kill a Nazi. And so they really believe this stuff. And so you've got a real radical group of people that are. And let's just go back to the heart of it. People need existential meaning in their life. They need something. And as we've pulled away from our Judeo-Christian tradition in this country, which has given people meaning and purpose, people are still going to need meaning and purpose. You don't. People think that we don't need religion. You can have a society without religion, secular society. Well, no, you don't. As soon as you give up Christianity, you're open to anything else. You fill it into anything else. You fill it with something else, and it's usually some of these isms. Over the past 100 years, it's been communism or Marxism or whatever, Nazism, fascism, racism, right? All these isms that really are quasi-religions that help try to give people meaning, and wokeism, all this wokeism stuff, all this LGBT stuff. That's just a quasi-religion to give you meaning, and I'm sure people made a lot of analogies of this. The woke stuff when you would see people back there in the BLM movement, people would be kneeling and wrapping colorful flags around their necks and doing mantras of "I promise I will never be racist again." There's like religious trappings to that whole movement, and there's like the saints and sinners. Just like Christianity has a saint and a sinner. Well, you're the oppressor and the oppressed. And so you can do. They're a sinner. They're the oppressor. So we can do what we want to the oppressed. So a lot of my heart goes out to people that are caught up in these ideologies because they're a lot of times just looking for something true, and they're searching, and so they get caught up in the stuff. And sorry, they still act out. We still got to stop it. We got to shut it down, and we got to fight it because it can go very dark. And if you looked at the past 100 years, here's how dark it's gotten. This same stuff, this same ideology, this collectivist Marxist stuff, kills 100 million people in the 20th century.
That's right.
There's a huge grave as deep as the Ohio River, probably goes from here to Cincinnati, full of bodies over in Europe, of just dead people because of this Marxism garbage. And all this woke stuff is Marxism just recategorized. Instead of the rich and the proletariat and now it's just a ethnic group versus oppressor group or whatever. It's just the same ideology though. And so but it's just a quasi-religion. So Charlie Kirk was the solution. He basically said, listen, go back to what works in America, Judeo-Christianity, God, and so anyway,
I think Elon Musk had a clip that got basically made the rounds last night, and he was talking about a physics principle, and it was nature abhors a vacuum.
Yeah.
When you take away something else always comes in to fill it. And so as we have marginalized Christian values, traditional values, taken away that God-sized hole that people have in their heart, when you've taken God out of that, something else fills it.
That's right.
And so this is the way a lot of these leftists are filling it with meaning. And the meaning that they're filling it with is, I'm trying to create a just world.
Yeah.
And they
A
can
utopian
justify
world. It's
any sort of
utopian.
action in order to get that.
That's right. Utopian vision of the world.
That's
Yeah,
right.
Right. If we could just fix this group of people, or fix this,
or eliminate this group
or
of
eliminate this
people.
group of people,
Yeah.
right? Or just take away these resources, redistribute it, or whatever. And so, Bob, your thoughts on that?
No, I was just thinking, first of all, I can't even fathom that we're sitting here today talking about the political assassination
Of Charlie Kirk. Yeah.
I mean, I have a hard time even getting that out of my mouth, and really thinking that happened in the United States of America, one of the more conservative states in our country, in Utah. And it absolutely blows me away. And, what was Charlie guilty of? Well, we've talked about it today, but, he was doing what he loved to do. And that's to have discourse and dialogue and talk truth in the heart of the lion's den. He's the guy that went on to college campuses. And guess what? It's no accident that the left pretty much had taken over the college campuses over the last 40, 50 years.
Right.
That was an intended consequence that, and target that they started going after. You can argue as early as the 40s, 50s, and we know the 60s for sure. And bringing their the ism mindset, Marxism, leftism, wokeism, whatever you want to call it. That's what they brought. And so Charlie was going right into the teeth of the lion and speaking truth to them and trying to wake up. And I think we could all argue very effectively wake up students, just normal students that were there that were being brainwashed and programmed.
That's right.
And he was bringing truth to, and we've talked about it many times today, to a dark world. And he was truly, truly a light, in our nation, and a beacon of hope. And I'm not giving up, guys. And I know you aren't.
Oh, no. I'm hopeful.
And I think, we did have somebody text in and said that they want to know how they can give, and so I think it'd be worth our time to go
they
over
want to
that
know the
again.
address. Yeah, exactly. Some people want to just mail a check. That's great. I didn't have anything on the screen ready, so here you go. Text, or you can write a check to KY Voice, P.O. Box 99607, Louisville, Kentucky 40269. So there we go. That's our high-tech graphics here on a piece of paper. So
also the website.
Oh, the website, exactly, kyvoice.org. And you go click a donate there. There's also a QR code on the screen that also takes you to that. And like I said, we're trying to be careful about that. We don't want to take this moment, this day, and try to fundraise off this tragedy at all.
And Tom, I want to read a text that just came in.
We're already doing this. Yeah,
It's a phenomenal text. In the movie 42, Pee Wee Reese and it's a phenomenal movie if you haven't seen it. Pee Wee Reese and Jackie Robinson play together on the Brooklyn Dodgers. They were going to a game in Cincinnati where nobody wanted them to come. Jackie had suffered every kind of form of hatred for wanting to just play the game of baseball. The crowd was jeering as they took the field, and Pee Wee Reese from Louisville walked over and put his arm around Jackie, and he said, "I want to thank you, Jackie." Jackie said, "For what, Pee Wee?" And I got a lot of family here from Louisville, and I need them to know that I'm on the right side of history. So for some people of us, I think this is an opportunity to let people know we are on the right side of history. Let me say that again real loud.
Yeah.
We are on the right side of history, including myself. I've been too quiet at times when I should have spoken the truth like Charlie always did.
Wow, great comment. Thank you for sending that text in, and that's great. And we encourage some more of your thoughts. We text us to that same number, 502-571-0970. And I think exactly. I think Charlie, his courage to go into the lion's den, like Bob was saying, to go into the college campuses is inspiring all of us. I even sent you a text last night. I was like, well, that's it. We're going to U of L. We're going to go set up a table. We're going to, they're not going to shut us. We need more Charlie Kirk. This is going to spawn more Charlie Kirks. And to your point, the college system is where this problem has started. Because the left took over that institution probably back in the 80s and started, because you started seeing a lot of the real left-wing professors take over the professorships and getting tenure, and then the college system no longer looked at themselves as just, we're here to explore ideas and share knowledge. It became more of we are here to indoctrinate and change the world, and we have a specific worldview that we're going to teach, and we think that is good for society, and it happens to be a left-wing worldview. So we're going to bring social justice and a Marxist view of the world, and we're going to teach that. And it's been an agenda that they've had, and so the result of that is what we've seen over the past decade is this woke, crazy, this cultural revolution we've been through, and so on all these fronts, and Charlie goes into the heart of it and says, okay, we're going to challenge that. And I mean, it's Daniel in the Lion's Den. That's exactly what it was. That was so brave. And what's ironic about this, though, all this woke stuff, one thing it's done is it's stopped family formation, right? People are not having as many kids, and we're not getting married. And so guess what? Millennials, there's 80 million millennials, right? Yeah. Gen Alpha, which is 2 generations later, because you got Gen Z, but Gen Alpha, which is everybody that's from 17 and below right now, there's only like 39 to 48 million people. Yeah. You can put that at the feet of colleges. You indoctrinated people not get married. You push all this feminism stuff, push all this LGBT stuff, you push all this crazy woke, all these values, anti-family values. Guess what? Now you're going to go bankrupt because there's not enough kids to go to college. And so over the next decade, it's going to be a bloodbath in the college system. Go ahead.
Yeah, one point, there was a poll that just came out this week that basically showed that young men in Gen Z, that their number one priority in life was to have a family.
That's it.
And they had the parallel female cohort. It was 12th on their list, was having family or having kids.
It's all about being boss girl,
exactly.
Boss girl stuff. And and then, of course, by the time they realize that's wrong, it's getting kind of late in their life, and they're like, I wanted a baby. Well, you're 40 now. I'm sorry, but you got a great career, and you got all these purses, and you went on all these vacations, but you got cats. Enjoy your cats. Anyway, so yeah, it's just tragic, and we need to go back to traditional American values. We'll be right back with Kentucky's Voice, and this is our share-a-thon as well. All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm Tom Fallbush. I'm your host today. I'm here with Dr. Lance Pearson and Bob Scott, and we're talking, of course, about the tragedy that occurred yesterday, the political assassination of Charlie Kirk. And that's what it is, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That was a political assassination, and we all see it, and everyone who followed Charlie Kirk's work like we do, and most people that are on the right that we feel like we've lost a friend, because this man was such a strong voice in our movement, and he was such a positive voice in our movement. He's doing such great work. We lost a friend, and it's funny. I was listening to some other podcasters last night, and there were the people that actually knew Charlie Kirk, worked with him, and he said this guy would just go out of the way to help me and do anything he could do, and just stories started popping out of the woodwork of stuff you'd never heard of before, and this guy, just on an interpersonal level, this guy was a great guy, and so he's just the people around him probably are just suffering right now tremendously just with the grief, and so we got to pray for them, pray for Turning Point, and I'm sure that movement's going to continue, and we need to pray for a good leader to rise up and drive it, and I'm going to continue to support it. We're going to do more here. I'll try to connect with Turning Point and try to do more here, because they, I think, single-handedly outside of the Trump himself, helped win the election in 2024. I mean, they get out the vote effort, working in Pennsylvania and some of these other swing states, and the voter registration effort. I mean, they really somebody said up to 20% of the votes probably came from their efforts, And so Charlie Kirk is responsible for winning this last election for Donald Trump, and I don't shy away from saying that, because if you look at the numbers, exactly what happened, and so God bless him, and Dr. Pierce, we were talking between the break that how. And actually, this last text that came in and said, "Hey, this inspires me to be more brave and to not be afraid to talk about issues and confront issues, and share our perspective." So the conservatives have been, and traditional Americans have been taught to think that we are the minority, that this progressive movement is now the new way of thinking. It's the dominant culture. You're going to be out of polite society if you don't go along with all these things, and the reality is it's only the elites that have been pushing this down our throat. The rest of America is like, no, I'm sorry, a girl can't be a boy, and that's wrong. And I'm not really comfortable with gay marriage. Yeah, sure, go do your thing, but don't force me to go along with it. All this race communism stuff that you're pushing on me, I don't want to get into that. I love everybody, but I'm not an oppressor, and so all this stuff is people. That's the way more normal people think, and so we need to be not afraid to just, because everybody really thinks that way. We just been taught to think that we don't believe the way. So to your point about you're sharing about Jonah during the break.
Yeah, so I wanted to draw some lessons, and I really wanted to end this last segment on a more positive note, give us what should be our response to this. And so I had a couple of lessons from the Bible. Bob referenced Daniel in the lion's den in the last section. There's another parallel, I think, and that's the story of Jonah. Most people know the story of Jonah as, this guy got swallowed up by a whale. But the actual story of Jonah was God had more or less ordered Jonah to go to Nineveh, which is one of the largest cities of the ancient world, probably 1 million people at the time. So just an enormous city. And there was a lot of racial and ethnic hostility between the Ninevites and
ancient Israel,
the Hebrews.
Right, Hebrews, right.
And so Jonah basically God told Jonah to go to this foreign land where everyone is going to hate him, and bring them the word that if they don't change their ways, God is going to destroy them. And so
sound familiar?
Jonah did not want to go on this mission. And I know my response would be, you want me to go into a city of 1 million people, all of whom ethnically hate me and don't want to hear my message, which is, if you don't change, you're going to die.
That's right.
So Jonah actually fled on a ship, was thrown overboard and swallowed by that whale. So avoiding being bold and taking that message that God wanted him to spread was the reason that he got swallowed by that whale.
Right.
He eventually does go to Nineveh. He tells them, and to everyone's surprise, including Jonah's, the Ninevites actually
respond.
They respond.
Yeah.
They actually are like, you know what? You're right. Our society, it has fallen away from God, and we need to do better. And God decides to spare that city because of the boldness shown by Jonah in that message. And so that's the message that we should have. And so in your segment last night with Andrew Cooper Ryder, Aaron Reed was on, and he kept referencing a verse from 1 Peter. So 1 Peter 8 says, "Be sober mindful and be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around your adversary like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour." The next verse, I think, is what is very telling, however. "Resist him in your faith, knowing that the same kind of suffering that you are experiencing are being experienced by your brothers." And so that's the message that we should take home. Be sober-minded, be watchful, be vigilant, but resist that tendency to be fearful and instead be bold. Stand firm in your faith and don't be scared of the consequences of going out and sharing.
Engage.
We don't hate people on the other side. We want to see them not only come to Christ, but also to respond to those traditional values that we know promotes flourishing in a society. Family, faith, freedom, fairness. All of those things are the things that the message that we need to get out. And so be bold in your faith. And I want to point to one thing. Don't think of the universities as lost either. There is great thing happening. There are great things happening at a lot of our universities. And one example of that, not only Charlie Kirk was reaching out, and you saw the gigantic crowds that came out to hear from Charlie Kirk and hear a different message from what they're usually exposed to. But the University of Louisville, for the first time, is starting a Chi Alpha chapter. Chi Alpha, they're kind of playing on that Greek letter fraternity thing, but it actually stands for Christ Ambassadors. So for the first time, there's going to be an organization that is reaching out to college students to spread the love of God and the message of Jesus on our university campuses. So support those efforts, and there are good things happening. There's always hope, and we need to lean into that hope and make sure that we're being a role model and an example for people that may see themselves as separate from us, but we are all humans, and we need to love all of those people.
It's beautiful stuff. Yeah, be bold. We got to be bold, and there's, because look, there's a price to pay if we're not.
Yes,
you know,
that's
our civilization falls apart. So you really don't have a choice. Either you're going to live in a society that's going to fall apart, and you're going to just going to have to go out and live in the mountains and have to survive off of berries or something. I mean, worst case scenario, really, the whole country goes into civil war, and we're just kind of, or we rescue this country and we restore it to its. You know, this country goes through these restoration cycles. You know, it's not the first time we haven't been here before. The Civil War was basically a restoration of the Constitution in a lot of ways. It basically said we're going to live up to what we believed when we created this country, and we're going to get rid of slavery. And it took some effort and took some, and the whole, the World War II. We're going to restore what America's about. We're going to fight for our values around the world, and we lived through the Cold War. And so we're kind of going through that same moment now where we're kind of, what do we believe? And okay, this is what we believe. Okay, we all remember that. Let's go back to what we believe. We're going to restore what we believe, and it's going to be awesome. And that's where we can be. And Charlie Kirk was bringing that message, and he did it in such a bold, positive way. So Bob, talk about that. When he was on campus, the positive message of and how he would engage with people. He didn't hate people. But he would tell you what, he would fight. Let me say this: he would fight and he would push back when people were being nasty to him.
Yes,
he would. He wasn't going to be pushed
magnet.
over, and we should fight. Yeah. And somebody's going to make fun of his death right now. We should get in their face and say, "You're an idiot and you're evil, and so you need to repent." And
I'm not going to argue that point. I will tell you, when we went to the event where Nate Morris was announcing his candidacy, in which Charlie Kirk opened for him, endorsed him.
Yeah.
I could tell you 95% of the people that were there to see Charlie Kirk. you know,
that's right.
And hear what he had to say. And I'm not trying to belittle Nate Morris, but that was the honest truth. You know,
That's right.
I know I was there as a reporter and asking
That's right.
and talking to people, and every person to a man and woman said, I came here mainly to see Charlie Kirk. You know, he had that natural charisma, and you talked about it earlier. I believe, as you believe, it was the gift of the Holy Spirit within Charlie that was drawing people to him. And let us not forget, yes, he was a political activist, a conservative political activist, but first and foremost, he was a man that loved Jesus Christ.
That's right.
And in all things, always honored him and put him first above all things. And it is a tragedy that what happened, obviously, yesterday in Utah. But you know what? I take comfort in knowing to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And Charlie Kirk right now, ladies and gentlemen, in our listening audience, Charlie Kirk is now rejoicing, you know, with the angels in heaven, and I'm sure hearing the word, "Well done, good and faithful servant." So we have a calmness that we can now rest in, knowing that that's where Charlie is. But for those of us still left here, we have work to do.
Yeah, we got to stay vigilant. Yeah. Right.
And you know, I want to mention, if you want to give, we've had several people ask, this is technically our fundraiser time. You can just, we've made it simple. You can go 502-571-0970. Tom's putting up if you want to mail a check in, some people like to do it the old fashioned way, but if you want to do it the easy way, 502-571-0970, and just type in the word give. It's that simple. And then you can give as much as you want to give. So please step to the plate right now. We are really the only true conservative voice in this area for Christian conservative values.
That's right. That's right. And let me add to what you're saying about we're in a positive moment, and well, not positive moment. Charlie Kirk is, you know, he's with his Lord and Maker, and so we take rest on that. But we here who are left have to stay vigilant, and we have to continue the fight, and we need to redouble our commitment to this. And we need to insist in this moment on consequences for what just happened. Consequences. The left needs to have a reckoning. They need to reject that stuff and get it out of their system. We can't fix it for them. The left, you guys need to get this fixed real fast, because this is going down a bad path. And we've seen this happen before historically. What happens when, you know, you start taking up the violence? It gets really bad fast. You don't want to live there. And so left, you better shut it down. And we need to catch this guy, and justice needs to happen. So anyway, God bless Charlie.